Okay, test. Is the audio working? Okay. And the answer is yes. Okay. Let me clear out that test message. It's going to do a little bit of work on this VRChat world. So, what got here so far is a pretty simple DJ deck, slightly angled table, then some buttons that'll allow the table to be raised and lowered with some script that exists to, where is that? Your program script, table height adjuster. Let me open this in Visual Studio. Might take some time.
Welcome to my channel.
There we go. And there's a C# script in Udon Sharp that handles the raising and lowering. Initially, I wrote this in Udon as an Udon node graph, but doing the code that way is pretty crazy because I have to handle 4 different events, but I'm really only doing one thing, which is changing the table height. And the way that it compiles shared code blocks doesn't work well. Meaning if I say have raise object utilize this code, utilize a code block that's a change table height, and I have a event lower object utilize that code block, the code block doesn't get initialized for one of them. When Udon Sharp, when the Udon node graph compiles it, one of these events is going to get the code block, and the other one will just not get the code block, and then you'll get a whatever null pointer exception when the other event gets triggered. This is pretty basic. The idea is anybody in the world should be able to share in the state of this table's height. So there's the button events themselves, up button, down button, and what they do is, in reality, only the object owner. This state here, radical up and down button, is local to the really only gets controlled by the object owner, and then sends a network event out. And this network event gets received by everybody, including the originator of it, and therefore needs to be a different name. Meaning that if you send the network event here, if up button sends the network event up button, the script will go into an infinite loop when you press the button, and the whole thing will hang. So we send a raise object, and the raise object here, and all of that this does is change the table height. And because this is done via a network event always, then the height of this table is synchronized among all players. So, the object itself is synced, so the height is synchronized among all players, but it'll also allow players other than the specific object owner to raise and lower this table and see the results. Without this event, if, for instance, the up button, down button triggered change table height directly, then the changes for each player would be, first, only the owner would be able to change the height, and then and the changes wouldn't get, somehow they're not synced reliably. By sending a network event, this triggers the event. Essentially, it makes the owner raise the height, and then that height change gets synced out to everybody. Anyway, this code works. It's not a lot of code. And but the problem is I put in a collider on the table itself. So there's a few things that I want to change here. The DJ table has a collider, and this collider is to keep people from accidentally jumping over or crawling under the table, because the table can move pretty high, and you might just be able to walk underneath it, or it could be down real low, and then you could walk over it. And the idea is we want this table to be a barrier. Plus, we only really want, and what happens here is that this collider prevents users in VR from interacting with those buttons, because apparently the collider prevents you from triggering the button actions here. So in VR, in desktop, I can trigger this if I walk up and clip into the collider, and then I can trigger the buttons. But VR users with headsets can't interact with these buttons at all. So I need to change that behavior. I'm going to put the collider back to the normal height. I'm letting the on the DJ side, letting DJs clip into the table a bit, so that depending on the size of their avatar, they can position themselves with their hands properly relative to the deck. And then this block here is the deck. Let me reduce the scale here. This would be 0.25 and Z 1.0. So this takes us back to the original size, right? Right. Okay. And this is what Cosmos said is actually the correct size. So I doubled it previously, and Spirit Snare said that, oh, it's a little bit, maybe 2/3 too big, so I made it 1.3. And then Cosmos was in this yesterday, and he said that it was still too big, that I should leave it at 1.0. So it's at 1.0 now. Let me make sure that it's in a good location relative to the collider, which it is. The collider is here, object is here. And then what I want to do is create an independent box collider that would then keep you from approaching the table from this side. And what I think I will do is, now that collider, here's the sync button. If viewers somehow get desynced from the stream being played, I have to make sure that the collider is behind the sync button, otherwise it will prevent people from using the sync button. And I want to make sure that the collider, however, is in front of the table so you don't jump on this lip. So let's see here. I guess I will create an independent object. So let's create 3D object. Cube. Let's put the cube here, and then make the cube thin. Right? I don't need this cube to be thick at all. So I can make it 0.01, right? Real thin. And then to see whether when it's above ground. Okay, it's slightly underground there. And then let's make it wider. 2, 3. How many meters wide is the DJ table? 4 meters wide, or 4 units wide. So let's make that 4. Then make this taller. Right. Okay. All right. Then that's 2 meters tall. Let's make it 3 meters tall. Why not? Why not make it taller? Now let's shift this back so it's behind the sync button. All right. And that's lined with the table. Let's make it a little bit bigger. Like 2. Yeah. And then let's turn off the mesh renderer. But still acts as a collider. That should keep people from, that should do it. You save this and let's try this in Cyan Emu. Although I can't remember, the Cyan Emu doesn't implement the this like collider preventing you from interacting with buttons thing. I didn't notice that until I was trying that in the real VRChat client. Let's see how this works. So in theory, can't get by that. Okay, good. And right, and I can still interact with this here. Right, okay, so that wall is pretty wall-ish. I'm not able to jump on that wall. Okay, so that seems to work okay. Let's try doing local testing. Let me launch 2 instances so I can show you what the network communication looks like. So it launches 2 clients, and both of these clients will avatar-wise look like me. So it's like there's 2 gnomes in this world, but only one of them is the world owner, and the world owner owns the state of the. Oh, whoops, sorry, I cannot do this while Visual Studio is running. Figure out how to set up Visual Studio Code for this. I really desperately need the code completion for Udon Sharp. Otherwise, it's too hard to figure out what all of the parameters are. But yeah, I can't have Visual Studio running at the same time because of the way that it opens the project or something. So let's see what this looks like in the real client. Building player, building and compressing data. Taking a while. What's going on here? There we go, done. All right, where is, then it's going to launch 2 instances of local VRChat client. There we go. They've popped up on the other monitor, so let me drag them over. It's one of them. And here's the other. I'm going to make one of them smaller than the other. Okay, so let me head in here and then can't get into the collider. Good. And then all right, so I have to be pretty close in order to actuate. Actually, no, it's okay because because the collider doesn't no longer intersects this guy. So I guess the collider is not a barrier like a point of view barrier. Actually, it does, right? Because here, when I'm on the side where the collider is not in between me, I can be pretty far away, and we see that the icon, right? So the dot in the middle goes all sparkly when the object can be interacted with. So I can be pretty far away, and it'll still go sparkly, and I can raise this object, and you can see that the small window must be the world owner. And so when I click here, it jumps up immediately, and then the other guy syncs with it, right? And then down, down. So from this side, when I'm not going through the collider, I can be pretty much anywhere. But here, going through the collider, I have to be much closer, right? So still not going sparkly. Still not going sparkly. Still not going sparkly. There we go. Now yeah. Okay. And then, but I can still interact with this from infinite distance, right? So yes, so that goes sparkly there. So the sync button is behind the collider, and I can't jump onto the DJ table from the front, although from the back, the DJ can jump on the DJ table, which is fine. No big deal. Okay, and then let me try to see what this looks like. I'm the other guy. So here now I'm the right. I have to be pretty close to interact with this. And on this side, though, no problem. You notice there's a lag when I hit it on this side. So I'm going to click and then it moves, right? Because it's the other client that's the world owner and manages state. So what happens is when I click this up button, it sends the network event, but then the actual move changing of the table height is managed by the other client. So the other client receives the event, moves the table, and then the table height is synced. So there we go. There we go. Okay, good. And then I'm not in VR, so I have no sense of scale here as to whether this is how good this is, but I can clip in here. Let me see what that looks like on this side. So I'm gonna watch. Actually, I'm gonna do it from the audience's perspective. So let's say I'm an audience member. I'm standing pretty close over here. And then I'm gonna come in here. Ah! Let's try that again. There's plenty of space back here.
Not underscore underscore VTuber. Welcome to my channel. Not underscore underscore VTuber. Said. Shocked face.
Right, so now I can clip into this table a little bit here and get real close. I guess gnome guy. His head is really high, but his hands are real low. So let's see what this looks like here. And so I'm bumping into a collider. Which collider am I running into? I'm not sure. Let me lower the table. There we go. All right, so either side can lower the table. If I lower the table so that the decks are now around Gnome Guy's height.
Not underscore underscore VTuber said, it's Chad AM. I have to be elsewhere with my real account, but this is interesting, so I'm here to watch on a bot account KEK.
Oh, hey, Sudden. Yeah, just messing around before Secret Sky starts. Let's see. And then up. Okay, up. Right, he's allowed to clip in. Oh, I see, yeah. There's no way because the hands are going to clip in because the body's allowed to clip in because the hands are not outstretched in front because I don't have a actual VR headset. So, so the hands always dangle down. Do I have any, let's see, do I have any emotes that might move the hands to see how the hands behave with the collider? Wave.
Not underscore VTuber said, are you experienced in this stuff? Building VRChat stuff, or Unity for that matter?
No, I've never touched Unity until a week ago. And I'm a very bad modeler. So writing like a bunch of C# code to do the network events, that was easy. Doing things like mapping textures to this table, that took me a really long time. One of our other members, Piro, he knows someone who's an experienced Unity modeler. So for this, I'm basically only modeling the minimum necessary for me to test the code. And then Piro's friend, the modeler, is going to build a Unity model of the venue where Annie Clover has where we have our usual events. And then I'll port all of these little things like the video sync player and the raise and the height changeable table into that environment when it's done. And then I'll probably also put a bunch of teleports in so that when Spirit Snare is doing camera work, he can put his avatar somewhere where he can get an overhead view. Share.
Not underscore VTuber said, oh, alright, nice. I'm a bit of a modeler too, but never use Unity.
Yeah.
And I don't write C#. Anyway, I'm a shut up now, cool stuff.
Yeah, I think modeling wise, Unity is best used, at least from reading stuff, to essentially to position objects relative to each other. People doing hardcore modeling would use Blender to make these more complex shapes and then bring the Blender objects into Unity and position them relative to each other. For 3D printing, I've used a bunch of CAD. And so for me, laying out objects in this space is a bit unconstrained from what I'm used to, because normally in CAD, in a parametric CAD, like in Fusion 360, I would specify in physical units, meters, millimeters, inches, a set of constraints between different objects. And then if I moved one object, everything else would follow those physical constraints. But that's not the way the Unity modeler works. Unity Modeler basically just lets you freeform drag objects around. It has some oddities, some stuff that I just don't understand. Like coming from CAD, my habit is to nest objects into groups. And the reason that I would want to, so that I can, like, the DJ table contains the decks and the buttons. So if I move the DJ table, everything moves together. The deck, the buttons, all move together. But the oddity is that the primitives in Unity are not like boxes, it's specifically cube with the same sides of with the same size, same with equal dimensions for all of the faces. So this table here is a transformed cube. It's been scaled down, so it's thin, 0.05 thin, and then 4 times wider. And that kind of makes sense, except that this transforms the space of the children. So you notice that in my children, say the DJ controller, the scale of this is weird. Like it's 0.25, 20, and 1. Why is this? Well, it's because the DJ controller is actually at 1-to-1 scale for its original modeled size. But because it's the child of this thing that has 4x and 0.5 scale on the parent, I have to put the inverse of these, right? So it's 0.5, the parent is a 0.5 Y transform. So I have to multiply the child transform by 20 in order to make this back to 1-to-1 scale. And same thing, the parent coordinate space now has been scaled by 4x. And so now in order to get this back to 1x size, I have to multiply it by 0.25. And so the way the parent and child works is, I mean, I understand why it works this way. But it encourages you more to have a bunch of independent objects that you then drag around and not necessarily use groups to transform together, because all of these motions are transforms, right? You see that the transform position is changing when I move this around, and this doesn't just move things in global space, but it also creates this local space in the child. So this is very, I mean, this is like mathy, right? It brings me back to like university learning like matrix transformations, because it's just a set of nested matrix transformations that go down here, that in other tooling, like in CAD, yes, under the hood, this is what the computer is actually doing in order to calculate the relative positions. But then there's no abstraction to turn this into physical relationships. So I just have to remember, okay, fine, right? Let's say I want to make the DJ deck 30% bigger. Well, 30% bigger means 30% in the X, which means 0.325 here. And 1.3 here, because I have to take the parent transformation into account. But that's okay. I think in real life, you would not do heavy lifting in this environment, or there's extensions. There's some architectural extensions for building walls and stuff that give you a different set of primitives that have different behavior. Okay, let's see. Anyway, where are we here? So then this guy here is not the stream owner. So right, so I can't adjust this. So I don't, I see. I don't, oh, wait a second. The controls are clicked in. I can't access the URL field. And this is the wrong guy anyway. The actual owner of this object is this guy. And yeah, so I can lock my controls here, but well, okay, so I need to move that in the model, but for now I will get around it by moving the table up. Interesting how sometimes it moves smoothly and sometimes it jumps. All right, now I can get back here, change this. Yipes. If I load this here, and the other guy could see it, assuming I didn't make any mistakes and mess something up. What's going on here? Why didn't this work? It's playing now. So why? Huh? Why is this not working now? It's totally working last night. Oh, 720p. Maybe it's because these. Is that the case? The video player prefab is asking for the 720p stream. And since I don't have the transcoder, I can't provide that on the URL that I entered. So let's test that theory. Let's go somewhere else. Insomniac's always broadcasting, right? Let's see. There we go. I see. Yep. Right. In that sense, the network event, and then the individual players will go and grab these. So I can display this. Right. And then the other window, the player who is not the world owner. All right, so the sync button does work. Makes you go back to commercial break again. But I cannot change the locked options. So in theory, should not be able to do this. Right, can't do this. Well, let me double check. I'm not sure that ASOT is broadcasting. Who else is online? Well, Robinson's broadcasting, of course. Right, but this doesn't work because this guy is not the master. So only the world owner, and this is the right behavior, right? You don't, everybody's in the same party. This isn't everybody in their own. Yo. What? Ooh, interesting. I say I have to hit enter. All right, and then okay, so that loads because Porter has the transcoder. Okay, so that's interesting. So the stream that I load has to have a 720p stream, otherwise this won't work. Okay, that's fine. Okay, let's see here. Okay, and the only thing I need to do is move this display a little bit forward so that the URL doesn't get blocked when the table moves down, right? So it's a little bit under the table now, which is initially I thought I'd want this a little bit out of the way under the table, but I actually need it to not be under the table because when the table intersects the control panel, it might obscure the controls. So let me move this guy here a little bit further out. That should be good. Okay. All right, done with these. And done with this. And we build and publish.
2020. Welcome to my channel.
Oh, it's still building. Come on. There we go. Yes, this always takes a while. We're not back yet. There'll be an upload page. There we go. Oh no! Crash! Yep, this happens. This happens like every other, maybe once out of every 3 times I try to upload to do the build test and or just do the build and upload. You just have to launch it again. All right, let's do it again. Build and publish for Windows. Building, building, building. All right, let's try this again. Upload. Uploading. Yay, finally done. Okay, that's it. All right, I am done for now. Later. Thanks for tuning in.